Hello everyone, my name is Joshua Bulavko. I am currently a junior at Randolph College, and it is my pleasure to present our summer research project that I did in cooperation with Dr. Gerard Chireko titled History and Historic Preservation of Rivermont Avenue and Beyond at the 22nd Annual Marcus Virtual Event. I hope you enjoy. So just to give everyone an idea of what our purpose was with this project, we wanted to spread the message that old places do in fact matter. We wanted to share stories of Lynchburg's history, particularly that of Rivermont Avenue, from current and past residents. The process of reviewing and assembling narratives for the Friends of Rivermont historical website, I utilized 5 flash drives worth of interviews, about 20 recordings in total, with past and present Rivermont residents. Dr. Chireko and I then collaborated to create captivating narratives for all interested parties to enjoy, especially public history enthusiasts in Lynchburg, as well as present residents and business owners that might be interested in the history of their properties. Knowing how Lynchburg once was can assist in addressing the future, especially in these tumultuous times. So one of the first things that Dr. Chireko and I did was we wanted to refresh the website for Friends of Rivermont Historical Society. Dr. Chireko and I met with Stimulus, a marketing and web design company, to improve the appearance of the website. This was very challenging just because there was so much to do, and also the fact that many of these changes took time. Changes, of course, would make the website easier to use and understand, as well as make it more appealing to the eye. Once this was done, we performed research on the ownership histories of each and every property in the 3 sections of Rivermont Avenue: Lower Rivermont, which is 301 to 1226, Middle Rivermont, which is 1301 to 2442, and Upper Rivermont, which is 2450 to 3409. We utilized city resources as well as paper records that Dr. Chireko had previously compiled. Online city resources only went back so far. I created an Excel sheet with a wide variety of information, including addresses, property names, types of property, present owners, previous owners, etc. I was able to update the ownership histories for all 275 properties of Rivermont Avenue, while Dr. Chireko updated much of the anecdotal information for each structure. And it was certainly remarkable to see how and when people own these properties. Assembling Rivermont narratives. The narratives for Rivermont Memories were composed utilizing interviews from past SRPs. Interesting thing of note, Rivermont was one of the first designed suburbs in Virginia. These narratives would humanize history on the avenue with stories of the people that lived and did business on Rivermont. They provided insight into what life was like in Lynchburg, businesses and institutions that have come and gone, and select narratives touched on issues of race throughout Lynchburg's history. This is extremely relevant as it is important to recognize the facts of Southern history to ensure that injustices, like those of the Jim Crow era, or even modern times, are never replicated again. Let's begin with one of those narratives that we were able to compose. This is Annie Massie. She was born at Virginia Baptist Hospital, 2216 Rivermont Avenue, in 1931. She spent all but a few of her 83 years in Lynchburg. She passed away in 2015. Her father grew up on Diamond Hill, while her mother grew up on Daniels Hill. Her maternal grandfather had purchased 1700 Rivermont Avenue around 1902, and this is where Annie grew up. She admired the arts since her days at Garland Road School, and she became an incredible artist herself. Annie first attended St. Mary's Junior College in North Carolina and later transferred to Randolph-Macon Women's College. She was an English major with minor in Latin and Greek. Though she and her husband, William, met in high school, they moved to Charlottesville temporarily, but then moved back in 1963. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, she taught English at E.C. Glass from 1955 to 1960. She became involved in the movement to name Rivermont Avenue a historic district, and she talked about the struggles with naming it a historic district. It took a few tries in the city council meetings, and she was president of both Friends of Rivermont Historical Society and Lynchburg Historical Foundation. Next, we have Bob McDaniel. He, too, was born at Virginia Baptist Hospital in 1936. As he grew up in the 30s and 40s, it was his family's African-American housemate, Emma, that raised him. She really stood out to us. Bob had fond memories of how Emma made homemade dandelion wine for the adults in the family to enjoy. And it was truly Emma that raised him. Emma walked Bob to Garland Road School each day. Bob would regularly frequent the Jones Library, which had a sensational children's section. Unfortunately, like many establishments in the South at the time, the Jones Library barred African Americans from coming in. For many years, African Americans were not allowed on the avenue unless they were in uniform heading to work. Shops and other businesses, both small and large, have come and gone throughout Lynchburg's history. Bob remembered J.C. Penney, Sears Roebuck, Guggenheimer's in the downtown area, and on Rivermont we had Piggly Wiggly, Katie Mundy's Columns Restaurant, Rivermont, and the Rivermont Pharmacy. Though downtown has been revitalized in the past few years, many stores were affected by the rise of the Wards Road area, as well as local shopping plazas. Next, we have probably my favorite narrative that we were able to compose, and that is of Dr. William Quillian, Jr. He was born in Nashville, Tennessee in 1913. He became president of Randolph-Macon Women's College in 1952. He lived at the old president's house with his wife Margaret, which is at 2460 Rivermont. Throughout his tenure at Randolph-Macon Women's College, they hosted many important figures at the president's house, such as Pearl S. Buck and Elizabeth Taylor, whose husband, John Warner, was campaigning for a Virginia U.S. Senate seat at the time. This is a seat that Warner held for over 30 years. Under Dr. Quillian's leadership, the college was able to increase financial support with a connection to the Methodist Church. Multiple building additions to the college were also made. They included Bell Residence Hall, Houston Chapel, new athletics facilities, the Mayer Art Museum, and the Leggett Building. Though controversial, Dr. Quillian directed the Board of Trustees to eliminate sororities due to their questionable reputation in the small community. Many community members were frustrated at the time with Dr. Quillian's progressiveness. The News in Advance repeatedly questioned Dr. Quillian's actions, one of them being support for student sit-ins. Dr. Quillian passed away in 2014, shortly before his 101st birthday. And this is worthy to note, most importantly, Dr. Quillian integrated the college. Next we have Muriel Casey. Muriel Casey left New York City to come to Randolph-Macon Women's College in 1949. Muriel immersed herself in many elements of college life in Lynchburg. She participated in athletics, Smith Hall theater performances, nights out at the Paramount and Isis theaters. She mentioned that finding good food wasn't a problem at all. Residence halls at the time had their own chef. There were many good restaurants in the town, such as the Virginian Hotel and Katie Mundy's Columns, which is now actually the admissions office of Randolph College. Casey mentioned that the Cavalier and Blue Dahlia restaurants were off limits to Randolph-Macon Women's College for many years. Some students kept it quiet if they went. She worked at the all-female Seven Hills School on Rivermont Avenue before coming back to the college. The college was evolving during this time. Like I said, building additions, renovations, the end of sororities, as well as the recent integration of the college. Various organizations that she participated in throughout her career included the Council for Advancement and Support of Education in Washington, D.C., Trinity Episcopal Church in Lynchburg, the Lynchburg Mental Health Association, the Women's Club of Lynchburg, the American Association of University Women, and the Daughters of the American Revolution. She directed the efforts of the Randolph-Macon Women's College Alumni Relations Office from 1972 to 2003. The Alumni House was later named after her because of her dedication to the college. Next we have Drs. Clifton and Dorothy Potter. Clifton was born at Marshall Lodge Memorial Hospital on Grace Street. Early on, he lived at 456 Rivermont Avenue, the old George and Mary Jones house. While they were living here, Clifton discovered secrets. He heard strange sounds, which he later found out to be an elevator used by George Jones to get upstairs, but it had long since been removed. Is this another ghost story on the avenue? That's up for interpretation. Later on, Clifton had an incredibly useful job at the Jones Library. This is where he furthered his passion for academia, and he never got lost in a library again, even when Clifton and Dorothy moved to England, where Clifton was had a Fulbright grant at the University of Oxford. Both Clifton and Dorothy attended Lynchburg College, which is now the University of Lynchburg. They would both return to the school to teach until their retirement in 2018. Clifton taught for over 50 years at the college, and Dorothy taught there as well before retiring together in 2018, as stated. One thing that came up in the interview with the Potters that was really interesting or the issues of race that were present during their lives in the South. Clifton's Yankee grandmother protested after being told to move from a seat next to an African-American woman on the Rivermont trolley. She reluctantly agreed to avoid a violent conflict. Clifton, too, was a target of abuse at East Glass High School for his progressive views to desegregate schools. Both were very courageous in their fight against the stigma of racism in the South. So some of you may ask, so what? Why should I care about these narratives? And I would argue that it has never been more crucial for us to better understand the past so we can move forward, not to mention the fact that there are clear benefits of humanizing history. It's easier to learn history from people that lived in the moment. They unlock doors to our past. Some may be uninterested in a list of facts, but these stories are far more vivid and simply fascinating. It is enlightening to know what businesses have come and gone. We can look back on these businesses that we have covered with nostalgia and always be thinking about how things once were, everywhere we go. It's never been more important in these tumultuous times to understand the truth of how life was for African Americans in the South, and how it still is. We must push to complicate the master narrative. The purpose of this project was extremely important to Dr. Shareko and I, and our continuous hope is to inspire more individuals to get involved with the efforts of historic preservation. Thank you all. If you would like to refer to our sources, they are here. Thank you all so much.